We are live, and let me start with a question. As investors, would you rather invest in an empire that is rising or in an empire that is falling? Well, in today's video, we're going to discuss about all that. Let's get into it.
Hey, yeah. It's all about wealth engineering. Might be something that you're not used to. It's okay, cause I'm here to introduce you to concepts. Time to grow and make big moves. All about crypto, come see. Stocks and business, yes indeed. Got the info that you need. Hosted by my homie JC. Hey, yeah. Wealth engineering. Stacking and stacking it up. It's time to generate wealth. Till you living like Scrooge McDuck. Hey, wealth engineering. It's time to show you the game. Till you living like Richie Rich. Till you ballin' like Bruce Wayne. Hey, you ain't gotta be an expert, no problem. It don't really matter where you at, just start it. It'll take time, hard work, and
What's up, guys? This is JC, and welcome to the Wealth Engineering Podcast. This is where I create content so that you can learn how to make, keep, and multiply money for the purpose of building generational wealth and retire early. Now, if we want to build generational wealth, today's topic is very, very important because depending on where you are within the generation, you might be at the beginning, at the middle, or at the end of an empire, and understanding the uncontrollable forces that can affect your wealth is truly important to understand how to place your wealth and so that you can still multiply it despite of what happened in the world, such as war, which we're currently seeing right now, or worst, a fall of an empire. All right, so we're going to discuss about all that. I'm very excited about today's video. I prepared some stuff for you. We're going to do a reaction on a video from Ray Dalio, and I'm very excited about that because he released a video about the changing world order, and it's going to be very relevant. It's going to be very relevant to what we have to discuss today. All right. So before we do that, let me, as usual, pay tribute to the chat. Salute before the billion was there early. And again, sorry guys, sorry about the delay. uh when you have kids, it's after the kid sleeps, that's when your life starts. So sorry about that. We had to postpone it a couple of times because of errands and doing a bunch of things, but thank you for everyone who still managed to come here and be early and hit the like even if you couldn't make it. And yeah, but worst case, you can always catch it and replay because this is a discussion we need to have, and as we're being educating ourselves financially, we need to be aware of things like this. So I'm very excited about this. Let me find out a definition, not the definition, but kind of like so that you can understand who Ray Dalio is, right? So basically, who is Ray Dalio? So we can go on Google. Who is Ray Dalio? For those who may not know, because if you're aware of what's happening in the world in the world of investing, you probably heard of Warren Buffett. Another name you might hear is Ray Dalio, right? So if you're a beginner, you may not heard about him, but it's a very key figure. It's almost like an influencer, right? An influencer that you can pay attention to, and let me see, and we can go and dive deep into him. But before I start, let me go on the chat again. Peter Investor M, salute to you, sir. Thank you for being here. Drop the link. No, we won't have a call for today. Salute, Snuggles. How are you doing? Salute. Yeah, yeah, us people. Hey, maybe we're next when it comes to the rise of the next empire. Who knows? And that's one of the questions I'm going to be asking you guys today. Who is next? If we have we first of all we have to agree on who is the rising empire right now and who is the falling empire right now, and based on that we're going to establish who might be next, right? That's going to be an interesting topic. I have a lot of we're going to react to this video right here, and but let me go to the chat very quick. Yeah, hi, hello Malika, how are you doing? Thank you for being here. Hope you're going to enjoy today's video, and hopefully I hope to see Karine. I know we had a conversation yesterday about it that she might be interested in. So I hope I see her tonight. If not, we can definitely chop it up on the next one. All right. So Hey, I like where you're going with this. I like where you're going with this. Let's get into it at the end of the video reaction I have ready for you. All right. So, who is Ray Dalio? Right. Ray Dalio is an American billionaire investor. Right. He wasn't always a billionaire. He wasn't born with money or lots of money. He had to build it on his own. Right. And it's really his principle that got him to a billionaire status, right? And he's a hedge fund manager. Now, many times you're going to see millionaires and billionaires, they're in the financial world, but not just, not just with life insurance, most likely managing other people's money. So if you're good at managing out other people's money and you make others rich, you can get rich too. And then your net worth is worth a lot more. So who has served as a co-chief investment officer of the world's largest hedge fund, Bridgewater Associate, right? So he founded Bridgewater Associates, and that's one of the things I love about him. He loves to share wisdom, right, and knowledge to other people. And he wrote his first book. I actually have his first book or the audiobook. And that's where you can learn a lot about him, about how he started Bridgewater and the principle that he implemented on Bridgewater as a way to operate and manage his business based on his principle and his philosophy of about investing, right? So since 1985, he was the co-chief investor, but he was very early on the founding member of Bridgewater. And again, this company was not always successful, guys. So there was a turnaround, and it's because of his philosophy. He founded Bridgewater in 1975 in New York. Within 10 years, he was infused with $5 million investment from World Bank Retirement Fund. So again, the people are giving him money, and these are financial institutions, right? Giving him money to handle other people's retirement fund. So if this goes wrong, right, you can start like a whole crisis, and you have like people in the streets, and a government does not want to give anyone the ability to manage other people's retirement fund, right? But eventually he got there to the status. And again, the wealthier you make the population, the richer you will get in a pure capitalist country. All right. So Dalio is regarded as one of the greatest investors in the finance world, right? Having popularized many commonly used practices such as risk parity, currency overlay, portable alpha, and global inflation index bond management. All right. So again, a very key figures when it comes to our modern again, it's not just an influencer; it's much more than that. And that's what I was saying. To me, Warren Buffett is the greatest investor of the 21st century. But if there is a close second, yeah, we could argue that Ray Dalio is that person. All right. Again, me, I'm very deep in numerology. So when I see number 8 as his number, 8 month, 8 days, you know, things like this rings a bell. Rings a bell. Actually, let me and I know for a fact is a life path 8. So already, if you guys know in numerology, life path 8 is something big, and it's the money number. It's the money number. Well, I don't know if you guys could hear the intro. For those who were here, could you hear the intro? It seems that I had some issues with the sound. I'm still doing this new form of setup, so I haven't had much practice with it. Hello, Karine. Karine, thank you for being here. I was waiting for you. I'm happy you're here, Karine. Karine, and let's get into it. Let's get into it. All right. So this is who Ray Dalio is, right? Ray Dalio is a very let's just call him for now a big influencer in the modern way or modern style of investing, right? And I made a video earlier this week. It's not a video that I made. It's actually a video clip from a previous podcast that I clipped it, posted on my channel. Make sure you check it out. You're going to see Ray Dalio's face on the thumbnail, and you're going to see Warren Buffett. It's two different philosophies of investing, but I think it's very important for you to understand both ways. As investors, it's you need to be exposed to as many philosophies as possible so that you can form your own philosophy, your own principle, and that's exactly what Ray Dalio preach, right? Ray Dalio preach about founding, building your own principle, and wealth engineering is a direct result of reading Ray Dalio's perspective. I had a bunch of ideas in my mind. They were kind of like scattered all over the place. After I read Ray Dalio's book, right, Principles, it's basically started making my own principle on my own philosophy. And that's where I come up with the term cash flow value investing, taking and taking inspiration from Robert Kiyosaki, and also Warren Buffett, right? So these two people, they were strongly influenced my philosophy about investing, but it all started with Ray Dalio. So all three of them, they are the foundation for me of wealth engineering in a way, right? But again, I recommend you guys to find your own philosophy. You can listen to as many people as possible, and eventually you'll get there, right? You couldn't hear anything. I hope now you can hear. But okay, so good to know. I'll have to play with the settings later and see what went wrong. But thank you very much for letting me know. Speaker. Yeah, I gotta figure it out later. All right. So one thing we're going to do also today, guys, is we're going to do a video review, video reaction of the new video from Ray Dalio. Right. Again, he's a very influential guy. He made a very popular. Actually, let's go in his channel. Uh, Whenever I'm streaming, I can no longer. My thing doesn't work. But if you guys go on Ray Dalio's YouTube channel, you're going to see all the video that he posted, right? So we're going to react to his 43-minute long video, and we're going to watch the entire thing. I have about 2 hours, 2 hours and a half, so we'll have time to react adequately to it. So here is the video here. It's called Principle for Dealing with the Changing World Order by Ray Dalio. Right. This is I think this is going to be a very popular video, maybe around 20 million views. But right now, he just released it this week, so I think it barely has. He hasn't crossed 1 million views yet. But I think, especially as the war goes on, yesterday we talked about, did we start World War III yet? So we're going to see this video is going to be more and more relevant as you see the war raging. And I believe what we're seeing right now is just the beginning. Hello, 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 Cheryl. How are you doing? Thank you for being here. And let me see, did I miss anything from the chat before we start this video? Let me see. Oh, hello, hello, Mr. Peter Investor M. The four horsemen of investment. Well, horsemen sounds bad, right? But James Simmons. I haven't heard of him. Let me mark it down so that I can check him later. I know you're a very insightful brother, Mr. Peter Investor M. So if you recommend me to check out James Simmons, I'll definitely check him out. But Buffett, Lynch, Ray Dalio, yeah, Lynch, I would put him there. For now, we can agree with the first three. All right, but for me, it was Robert Kiyosaki, Buffett, and then Ray Dalio, or Ray Dalio first, Robert Kiyosaki second, Buffett third. This would be the investor that had the most impact on my own philosophy and how I structure uh, the cash flow value principle that I teach in wealth engineering. Wealth engineering is a school where I educate millennials on the best practice to invest and the education. We do financial education. The first module of my course is exactly what this video is about, right? The principles, the uncontrollable forces that can affect your wealth. And guys, before I start, right, there is something I want to talk about. Before I start, let me let me look at you in the eyes as I say this. Oh, sorry, sorry. I play it too early. But let me start. Right, as investors, again, I started this video by asking a question: where would you rather invest? In a rising empire or in a falling empire? Right now, before you answer that question, think about what most financial influencers say: you buy low, you sell high, right? But the real investors, what they do, they buy low, they ride it, and they stay with the winner, right? They stay with the winner. They stay with the investment that is high. So whether you buy low, you sell high, or you buy low and you stay high, the key is the key to wealth is you definitely find an undervalued assets at a low price and you get it cheap, you get it a large amount, and you just wait until it appreciates over time. And then the more assets you build up like that, the more billions or millions you get, right? Keep it simple. Now, the masses, however, they don't have this philosophy, right? And, uh, and we could agree that they act emotionally for the most part, and we can get into the psychology of the masses, and basically only a 10% of investors are successful, 90% of the investors actually lose money. You could say that the market is very psychological, right? Because it all depends on the mindset of the masses, where whether we have a boom or bust, right? But the people that really makes money is the people that can predict what the masses will do, and then they place themselves there before the masses, right? So in a way, the market is very psychological. However, However, I always say this, you need to understand the uncontrollable forces that can affect your wealth. And some of these forces are cycles, right? Now, we have, ever since we have currencies, we can print currencies and we can slow down printing, right? By controlling the interest rate. That creates cycles. Cycle could be every 5 to 10 years, we get a market crash, right? A boom and a bust, right? Boom, bust. For example, we had a boom in the 90s, late 90s, a bust in 2000, another boom from 2001 all the way to 2008, 7 technically, and then a crash, bust, like led to the financial crash of the real estate, and then another boom from 2010, 9, 10, 11, with all the way to now, where we could be at the start of the bust again, right? These are cycles from 5 to 10 years. Actually, this one lasted more than 10 years, but these are cycles. But within those small cycles, there are bigger cycles. I know very well, and I talk about that in my course, the first module, a 90-year cycle. Once a generation cycle, that if you could trigger that and if you could understand that when it's coming, you can actually make generational wealth for your entire family. And talking about 6 generations down the line, this is where Walmart comes in, right? This is where a lot of people like Walmart, they built generational wealth. Then you have bigger cycles, more than 90 years. And this is where the videos today is going to be crucial, because you're going to understand this. But in a nutshell, what I wanted to summarize out the video is the market is both psychological and psychological. There is a logic behind the big cycles that we're seeing, whether we're talking about 5 year cycle, 8 year cycle, 10 year cycle, 50 year cycle, 90 years, right? Or 300 year cycle. There is all of these smaller cycle create a bigger cycles. And if you could understand that, then you can understand the big picture. And then once you understand where the big picture is going, you place yourself with small steps that you can ride the wave with the big win, right? So that's where the videos today is coming from. Understanding the world, changing world order, right? And there is giving principle on how to do so. So without further ado, let's start the video review. And before we start, actually, let me go very quickly on the chat. I know you guys are active. And again, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. I know it's Sunday. I know I'm starting late, but thank you for being here. Hello, Wally. How are you doing? I am just telling him he should let you on the panel. If you consider that poking you, I can't help you with that. Don't worry about that. I don't poke. Um, One day I really want to see you on a panel. So we'll see. I would invest in a falling empire and bet against it. Hey, that's a good plan. That's what I'm saying. If you know what's going to happen, it doesn't mean you won't invest in a rising empire, but at least you have a plan to still make money on a falling empire. Because what the thing the yeah, there are 300-year cycles. You're going to understand that very well, actually. But yeah, the thing that some people don't do, especially if you're not financially educated or just understand history, is you would invest on a rising empire. Sorry, you would invest on a falling empire and then an investment that is actually planned to fail. But in your short term, you're looking at it from the short term perspective and you're hoping that it rise. But again, there are bigger forces that can affect your wealth, and some of these forces can push it down. And if your timing is wrong, you're not going to make the most out of it, right? So I oh, Karen, shout out to you. Let's get into it, guys. Let's get into it. I'm very excited about this one. I wanted to do it. And let's start with the review, guys. Actually, let me know if you can hear it. So, can you guys hear that? Press a 1 if you can hear it. Press a 2 if you cannot. Let me know if you can hear it. No problem. All right, sorry. Let me know if that was okay before I start playing all of it. And again, to make it my own content too. I have to stop it here and there. I left the full link in the description if you want to check it out later, or just type Ray Dalio principles, and then this will be one of them. He released it earlier this week. If you're really interested, I actually recommend you to rewatch it again after the stream to fully grasp it. But we are going to watch it. Hmm. It's wonky. The sound is wonky. Um. Hmm. Let's see what else I can do. Don't think I can do much. Okay, I'll let it play more, and then Wally, let me know how it goes. Okay, let me know how it goes. I'll let it play more. Uh, just double check my sound very quick. Should be all right, but we'll see. All right, so let's play it. All right. So I do not hear anything. No sound. Okay. Thank you for letting me know. Um, Let me see what I can do with that. Let's see if I can make it better. Thanks for letting me know. Um, hmm, let's see. How about how about now?
Over my roughly 50 years of global macroeconomic investing, I've learned the hard way that the most important events that surprise me.
Is that better? Is that better? Let me before I play it any further, because I want you guys to fully understand this, so I want to make sure I get it right. Okay, sorry for with my new setup here. I have my headphones to sounds is fine. All right, perfect. Let's get into it. You know what? I'll replay it for sure because I don't want you guys to miss anything. And also at the same time, I'm doing some work. That's why my camera is off. But Let's play, guys, because I want you guys to hear the full of it. With that said, let's get into it.
The changing world order. The times ahead will be radically different from those that we've experienced in our lifetimes, though similar to many times before. How do I know that? Because they always have been. Over my roughly 50 years of global macroeconomic investing, I've learned the hard way that the most important events that surprised me did so because they never happened in my lifetime. These painful surprises led me to study the last 500 years of history for similar situations, where I saw that they had indeed happened many times before, with the ups and the downs of the Dutch, British, and US empires. And every time they did, it was a sign of the changing world order. This study taught me valuable lessons that I'm going to pass along to you here in a distilled form. You can find the comprehensive version in my book, Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order. Let me begin with a story that brought me to this point, about how I learned to.
All right, guys. So one thing I want you to understand from this, because again, what he put it in 43 minutes. There are many people that spend their entire life without ever getting that, right? Some people make tons of money without knowing half of what he's about to share. And some people know more than what he shared and not make money, right? So it's not about just knowing it, it's about what you do with the information. The reason why I paused it is because I wanted to pay attention to one thing he said. He said he made many investments as a global economic, right? And every time what caught him out of surprise was kind of like a bigger trend, what he could not see coming. That's what got him out of surprise. What do I always say in my stream, in my course, in everywhere? Try to understand the uncontrollable forces that can affect your wealth. It's just a different way of saying the same thing. What he is saying he was looking back 500 years ago and understand the world order. And whenever he could see there was a sign of a changing world order, that's what he realized. Oh, that's what was happening. But he also said that never happened in his lifetime. So there are things that were already in motion before he was born that he could not see coming because first he wasn't even paying attention about it because they were happening before they were born. And when he is about to make a move, you make a bet, you make a prediction, you make an investment, bam, something happened. Until you pull the curtain back and study 500 years ago and realize, oh, this is what's happening. This is why I wasn't able to see it. It was Winston Churchill that says, the further you look back, the further you can see in the future, right? So, as investors, you have to develop the ability to be good future predictors. Create your own crystal ball. And the best way to do that is by studying the past because the history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it often rhymes, right? And when it comes to big cycles, like these cycles are very long. It takes a long time for an empire to rise to the top. It also takes a long time for an empire to fall. That could be 200 years, that could be 300 years. Yes, Mr. Snuggle, there are cycles that are 200 years old. You were laughing earlier. This is not a laughing matter, man. It's serious. And let me tell you this, I have identified a cycle that is even older than that. I have identified a cycle that is 500 years. Now, one of the reason why I'm playing this video, guys, I'm risking I'm risking a strike on my channel to play it with you guys to evaluate this. This is something that I would do on my Patreon, but for this one, I wanted to do it on my public videos. It's, guys, there's a lot of information to share, right? But we are heading towards the biggest wealth transfer in history. The biggest wealth transfer in history. When you start understanding cycles like this, the world changing order cycles, the rise and fall of empires, the other cycles that I have identified, the shorter cycles, the medium cycles, the longer cycles, what we're currently living right now is the biggest wealth transfer in history because there is so many cycles converging at the same time. All right? There's so many cycles converging at the same time, which creates the biggest wealth transfer in human history because in the past, we never had so many cycles converging at the same time. So that's why I'm making this video public. And I want to make it live and answer your questions so that we can get as many views as possible because you need to understand cycles like that. This is just an introduction to big cycles. Again, just 43 minutes. But I encourage you to do the research, to do the get involved in any way you can after. But for now, let's dive deep into it because there is many things I want to discuss tonight. And before I do any quickly, let me go to comments. Thank you again for letting me know about the sound. Balls Don't Lie podcast. Hey, how are you doing? That's a great name for a podcast. I hope you have a YouTube channel. If you do, I'll check it out. Thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy the content. Application is key, and there is wisdom coming in. Absolutely. And let's get into it, guys. Let's get into it.
Anticipate the future by studying the past. In 1971, when I was a young clerk on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, the United States ran out of money and defaulted on its debts. That's right, the U.S. ran out of money. How? Well, back then, gold was the money used in transactions between countries. Paper money, like the dollar, was like checks in a checkbook in that it had no value other than it could be exchanged for gold, which was the real money. At the time, the United States was spending a lot more money than it was earning by writing a lot more of these paper money checks than it had gold in the bank to exchange for them. As people turned these checks into the bank for gold money, the amount of gold in the U.S. started to dwindle. It soon became obvious that the U.S. couldn't keep its promises for all the existing paper money, so people holding dollars rushed to exchange them before the gold ran out. Recognizing that the U.S. was going to run out of real money, on Sunday evening, August 15th, President Nixon went on television to tell the world that the U.S. was breaking its promise to let people exchange their dollars for gold. Of course, he didn't say.
All right, guys, what you heard right now, this is the creation of Forex exchange, right? I hear about Forex as Forex is one of the biggest market where money is being transferred every year, every day, actually, money being transactions. What I want you to get from this is before 1971, there was a difference between currency and money, right? I guess there was no difference because the currency was only used to claim the money, right? Because the currency was just a receipt that said, hey, it's much easier to carry your receipt versus carrying the gold, right? Much easier to carry the paper money as opposed to carry the real money, which is the gold stored in the bank. So um, that's why people carried money, right? And it's a very important key point to keep in mind because at the time, the paper money was money. because it was backed by something that was a store of value, because there's always going to be a need for gold. Gold is an industrial metal. Gold is a metal used for jewelry. Gold has other properties that we can use for many other perspectives. So there is always going to be value for gold, store of value, right? That's what money is supposed to be. Money is supposed to be a store of value. A currency is designed to lose its value over time. But when the currency is tied with money, then it's paper money, it's real money. But 1971, right? You remember how this happened? This happened because the US got greedy. And they got greedy because of war. First, it was the World War II. Then they had the Vietnam War, right? They were always printing money. That's how they were buying a lot of things and acquire, basically they were at the top of their empire, getting more, expanding their military across the world, right? Triggering war, and war trigger more money, and the more money you print, the more money. Well, you have to eventually, if it's tied with gold, you're going to have to, if you have those receipts, you have to actually be able to claim those receipts, right? But once the world realized that the US could be full of S, they said, hey, I don't want your paper money anymore. Give me the real money. Give me the gold. Give me the Fort Knox gold, right? Shout out to Charles de Gaulle, a French president, who started this trend about almost 10 years before 1971, right? He started this trend. And what Mr. Nixon had to do to protect the sovereignty of the US, because if the world realized that the US lied the whole time and printed 12 times more currency than there were gold in the bank, then eventually they would run out of money. The fraud would be exposed. The world order would have been destroyed. They would have had to go to a new treaty that could have even start a new war, because people are like, hey, you gave me fake money. Let me fight you over that. So you were hours away from a crisis when Nixon did this. And actually, Nixon had to do this. But the minute he did that, he created the room for inflation. He created the room for central banks to be able to print money or currency that is not tied by money. And that's when you're going to see the price of gold, which from $35 an ounce all the way to what it is now, close to $2,000 an ounce. It's because it's not that the gold changed, it's the money that changed. The money became less and less valuable, so you need more money to buy the same thing, right? It's a perfect example of what inflation does, and that happens in everything. Real estate. Imagine how much you could, before 1971, in the 60s, you could live with just one person who's working in a family making, let's say, 40,000, 30,000. That was enough to supply a great living lifestyle for everyone, right? The kids, one household, the father goes to work, right? The mom stays home with the kid. That was enough. Now you need two people to go to work, and you still don't have enough to pay for rent, right? That's all because of inflation happening. Queen Royalty, thank you for being here. Just subscribes. Thank you for being here as well. Peace to all. Now let's get into it, guys. Let's get into it. Let's keep going with this.
Say it that way. He said it more diplomatically, without making it clear that the United States was defaulting.
The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy. And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world. Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
I watched in.
You see, I I hope you are listening in between the line, right? I hope you're listening in between the lines. First, he said the US is a very strong economy. He said it with a straight face. Again, I told you they were hours away from a major crisis, literally the fall of the empire right then and there. Right then and there, that could have led to the fall of the US empire if he had kept going. If Nixon didn't do this, there would be no US empire after that. But he told you with a straight face, US has a strong economy, right? Second, he said, for the interest of US and the monetary stability, it's going to remove the axis of claiming the US dollar with gold. And that was supposed to be temporary. That was supposed to be temporary to give people the ease. Okay, we're just going through some rough time right now. We need to do this. Eventually, we'll go back. We'll get back to normal, right? People, the masses didn't fully understand what was going on. And this is where the media is important, guys. The media is supposed to be the fourth estate in a democracy. And the media is supposed to keep the people that were elected accountable. The media, most media, back then, the media didn't fully understand what was going on. But even back then, they were understanding the importance of the currency being tied with gold. Now, no one is educating us about money, about currencies. You don't get that in school. Why? So that we can extend what was supposed to be temporary, we can extend it and make it the norm. And that's why Generation X, Generation Y, and the Generation Z, we will never know what it's like a life without inflation, right? But it was supposed to be temporary. You heard him. You heard him say it, right? You heard him say it. I'm gonna play it back again, and now listen to it, the trained ear, and listen to his word. And that was in 1971. And remember, we are in 2022 right now, right? Listen to him saying that. Give me a second.
Ability of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
I watched in awe, realizing that money as we understood it was ending. What a crisis. I expected the stock market to plunge the next day, so I got on the exchange floor early to prepare. When the opening bell rang, pandemonium broke out, but not the kind I expected. The market was up, way up, and went on to rise nearly 25%. That surprised me because I never experienced a currency devaluation before. When I dug into history, I discovered that the exact same thing happened in 1933 and had the exact same effect. Then paper dollars were also linked to gold, which the US was running out of because it was spending more paper money checks than it had gold to exchange for them. And President Roosevelt announced on the radio that he would break the country's promise to exchange dollars for gold.
It was then that I issued the proclamation providing for the National Bank holiday. And this was the first step in the government's reconstruction of our financial and economic fabric. The second step, last Thursday, was the legislation promptly and patriotically passed by the Congress, confirming my proclamation and broadening my powers so that it became possible, in view of the requirement of time, to extend the holiday and lift the ban of that holiday gradually in the days to come. This law also gave authority to develop a program of rehabilitation.
In both cases, breaking the link to gold allowed the U.S. to continue spending more than it earned, simply by printing more paper dollars. Since there was an increase in the number of dollars without an increase in the country's wealth, the value of each dollar fell. As these new dollars entered the market, without a corresponding increase in productivity, they went to buy lots of stocks, gold, and commodities, and hence caused their prices to rise. As I studied more,
All right, guys. All right. All right. You hear it. Now, for example, let's say you were making a bet that first day that, oh my God, money was going to lose its value, and then you didn't know history, right? That could have caught you off guard. But what most people were not doing is the long term uh, understanding from the long term. How is that going to affect the country? Now, when Roosevelt did that in the 1930s, you could look at it from the price of ounce of gold. It went from about $20 to $35, and it stayed $35 for a very long time. So in terms of appreciation or inflation, because the money was still tied with gold, it was okay. But when the Nixon cut all ties with gold, that means you're cutting ties from a limited supply, something physical, and then now you can go print unlimited amount of money. And when you look at the rise and fall of empires, this has happened before. Exactly, there is 7 stage of an empire, right? And usually when you get to stage 5, this is exactly what happened. Cut all ties with money, where there is a clear difference between currency and money. All right. So what we're seeing here is just the process. It's a clear sign that your US was the empire, like at the top of the empire, because you can only do that when you're at the downside of the empire. That doesn't happen on the upside. All right. But we'll get into that later. I think he's going to break it down even deeper. But before, let me go very quickly in the chat, see more people tuning in. Thank you very much. See a lot of conversation between you guys, but wait, let me see. You cannot say the media did not know what was going on back then. Wednesday created movies like Birth of a Nation back in 1950s or even 40s, so your assumption is wrong. Um, when I say this, no, I don't think they were fully aware. I stand by what I said. I don't think they were fully aware. Do you think the media knew exactly that they were hours away from a crisis that could have be the end of the sovereignty? You think all this information were made public back then? No. But what they could have done is keep more pressure, right? And I bet you did try to do that at some point, but hey, that's when you start having the states being involved in the media itself, right? That's when they start being infiltration in a country like my country in Haiti. It's obvious. You see exactly the states hire the state control who gets hired in the media, and in the United States it may be more subtle, right? It may be more subtle, but it's still the same thing. It's still going to be someone who control the media is going to control the information that's going to be put it out there. And that I know has happened in the 70s. I know this happened in the 70s. And the reason why it needs to happen is because if we have the true form of the media out there, there will be too much question asked. There will be too much eyebrows raised. There won't be enough people being elected and keep pushing it down the can. But by no mean I thought the media knew how like how dangerous this situation was. This situation could have led a war between France and the states. Like, I'm telling you, it was a bad situation, because imagine you selling the entire world a country a money that is fake, right? And we're talking about countries that just got after the World War II. They still remember what it's like. They're still being aware. They're still like on the edge. And the only reason why, in a way, you won that war is because you printed fake money, right? That could trigger the losers of the war, right? Who knows? Who knows how that would have ended? But one thing for sure, it would have led to a crisis financially on a global level, that we need to have a new form of money, and that would have automatically affect the U.S. sovereignty, which was at the time at its height in terms of an empire. So because they have the power, because they have the control at the time, they also have the reserve currency, or that's when that was about to be formed. They they felt comfortable enough in their powers to do that, which is okay because most people are like, okay, at least the world is still stable. But in the long run, it destroys it destroys us, the millennials. It destroys us, generational Z, because we're going to have to pay for the debt of our previous generation. And the more money we're printing now, our kids is going to have to be pay for it, right? But I hope that clarifies it. You people seems to is you guy, man. You people seems to want a currency that is controlled by electricity. I wonder what would people do without electricity. Who knows, man? We'll go back in the Stone Age. Who knows? But let me see, man. It was so dumb. I got up to chase my baby water. What? I think you're probably talking with someone in the chat. But hey, let's get into it, guys. Let's get into it. And let me see. Cool.
More history, I saw that the exact same thing happened many, many times before. I saw that since the beginning of time, when governments spent much more than they took in taxes and conditions got bad, they ran out of money and they needed more. So they printed more, a lot more, which made its value fall and made the prices of most everything, including stocks, gold, and commodities, rise. That's when I first learned the principle that when central banks print a lot of money to relieve a crisis, buy stocks, gold, and commodities because their value will rise and the value of paper money will fall. This printing of money is also what happened in 2008 to relieve the mortgage-driven debt crisis. And in 20
That's that's exactly what I was gonna say. I was gonna talk about 2020, but that's a nice principle, right? When central bank, well, actually, that's if you are an investor, that's something you want to keep an eye on. If central banks prints money, a lot of money, you can buy stocks, gold, and commodities. If you look at the what happened after 2008, when we had the first stimulus package, that shows you exactly what it means. First stimulus package, stocks started rising all the way up. But now we're at the top of the bubble. And then all of a sudden, there is this war on germs. And then now we're printing more money. And what did we notice right after? The market was going to go crash like within a week, right? March 15, I remember March 15, 2020, we were trying to sell stocks, you couldn't. Market was shutting down like crazy, but then money was printed, a lot more money was printed, then stocks started rising again. But now we had a situation where uh, money is being printed. We are already at low interest. When you are at a high interest for the Federal Reserve and you're dropping the interest lower, it gives you room to print money. But when you are already at zero, and I don't know if you know this, we've been at zero, right? Economy is going bad. We need to raise the interest rate. But as soon as we started raising interest rates, something happens. 2018, right? We needed to raise the interest rate. 2020, we need to we need to slow it down. 2021, we need to raise the interest rate. 2022, we got nuclears. Right? 2022, we got nuclears. So maybe we gotta hold on printing more money. Oh, sorry, on we gotta hold on raising the interest rate, because if you remember, at the beginning of the year and at the end of last year, we were talking about raising the interest rate 4 or 5 times throughout the year. All of a sudden, war happened, and next thing you know, maybe we're not going to raise interest rate as much anymore, so that we can print more money to go to war, right? And it's kind of like this delicate play that's been happening where the US is in a situation where they're trying to extend the inevitable by printing more money, but that's just going to make the crash even worse. But hey, while this is happening, stocks and commodities are going higher. But now it's going to a point where oil is going so fast that I don't know. We may have it may not work. And let me see. Hey, thank you very much. Um, Mr. Awesome. Thank you very much. Another civilization. Let me put it here. Another civilization that maker is a hyper focus on gender identity. So America is 2 for 2. No, there is this list is way longer than that, my man. So if you want to know, if you want to know how accurate you are with this statement, the only thing that I disagree with this statement is the 2 for 2. I would say probably 20, and America is 20 for 20. Do you think it's too late for the nation or not? You know what? Personally, I don't. Personally, I think it's too late. I think there is. Well, what is inevitable is the fall of the empire. That's what I think. I think it's inevitable. It's too late for that. It's going to fall. The what we can argue on is when is that fall? Is that fall in the next 10 years? That fall is going to be extended longer? Is that fall is going to be shorter? And then what's going to happen also is how bad the fall will be. But the problem is the bigger we extend that bubble, the worse the fall will be. That's the problem. So right now we're kind of like trying to buy more time, but eventually that more time will come at a cost that will be severe for the generational Z. That's what I think, right? But let me see. Is that for me? Do you see? Do you know? Seeing that you said yesterday you can only trade petrol in dollars, so it just means that the only thing that is holding up the dollar is now petrol. Well, yeah. Oh, okay. Yes, yes. That is the only thing holding the dollar right now. But this is why this current war is dangerous, man. The war with Ukraine and Russia is dangerous because if it's lead to a war and there is a winner and it's not the US, it's a problem. It's a problem. And I don't know if you know this, Saudi Arabia is already talking about making it not clear that they're for the US this time. So they kind of like going in the middle, opening themselves for potential winner that may not be the US. All right. So we'll get into that. But as investors, you need to understand this. You need to understand this principles. One principle. This principle is great, but when you have 10 years, over more than 10 years of central bank printing money, I don't know. I don't know if that principle is still valid. Maybe we have to pair that with another principle, right? So let's play it and see what it goes. But again, thank you again for $5 super chat, Mr. Awesome. Who's currently the sponsor of the stream. And I'll get to your question very quickly. What is the ruble held? What? Sorry. What is the ruble held with the? If you don't mind me asking. Oh, what is the ruble? What is held in the ruble? Well, it's always for the most part what the country can produce, right? It always comes down to the countries what they can produce, and Russia is producing pretty much 40% of the entire energy for Europe. So if they want to ask for ruble to provide that energy, then it gives the ruble value. It's just not as strong as the US to provide value for the entire world, because if Russia wants more oil from Saudi Arabia, for example, they have to buy it in US dollars. So it always comes down from the production of the countries and how they want to get paid. And if other people value what this country produce, that's what backs the currency. But if you print it to oblivion, then it's backed by thin air, and it's beyond what the country can produce. But let's see what this video has to say.
And the value of paper money will fall. This printing of money is also what happened in 2008 to relieve the mortgage-driven debt crisis, and in 2020 to relieve the pandemic-driven economic crisis, and it almost certainly will happen in the future. So I suggest that you keep this principle in mind. These experiences...
Now, here's a question for you guys. Do you think right now is buying more stocks, gold, and commodities? So if we're looking at just this principle, technically right now we should be buying stocks, gold, and commodities, right? Because central bank is printing money. We're at zero. We were very close to zero interest rate. It's about to rise, but hey, we're heading towards a war right now, and it doesn't sound like we're going to see more interest rate, at least for the first half of the year. So does that mean you should buy stocks, gold, and commodities? So it's not just one principle that you got to operate by, but it's an interesting principle. It's all about timing, though. That's what I'm trying to say. This could be, for example, a smaller cycle within a bigger cycle. So if you're just looking at the smaller cycle, you might think, yes, this is the right move to do. But if you're looking at the bigger cycle and you're looking at how this principle fit within the bigger cycle, then you may have a different perspective. And that's why it's always important to be informed and factor as many, call it, many forces that can affect your wealth.
That you keep this principle in mind. These experiences gave me another principle, which is to understand what is coming at you, you need to understand what happened before you. That principle led me to study how the Roaring '20s bubble turned into the 1930s depression, which gave...
Why can't you give my dad a job? Gee. Oh, poor kids. Oh, man. But hey, that's what happens, man. Every time, every action has a reaction. Everything we do has a reaction, opposite amount of reaction that can come up from it. So the rise will lead to a fall, whether it's a smaller time frame or a bigger time frame, like the empire, for example, right?
Turned into the 1930s depression, which gave me the lessons that allowed me to anticipate and profit from the 2007 bubble, turning into the 2008 bust.
See, it's all about timing. Now, in 2008 bust, what was happening? A lot of money printing, though. A lot of money printing. So if it's all about timing, maybe what you can do is on the way up, that's when you start buying, because at least you understand that you're no longer falling anymore, right? It's all about timing. And that's what I was asking you earlier. Do you think he's currently buying stocks, gold, and commodities right now? It's timing. He said it himself. He was able to understand the cycle and at the beginning, right, basically ride the wave all the way up here, right? It was on the real estate bubble. Actually, that's where he made a lot of his money. I think probably most of his money was made around there, around this time right here. So understanding a timing like this and be able to prepare for it for years in advance can get him to the billionaire status. You can get him understand that. Let's say you understand the cycle and you prepare for it, you stash up for it, and then you remember he's also investing other people's money, retirement's fund. Let's say you were preparing that for that time, and as soon as that time happened, you were ready to put billions and billions of dollars in the market right here. And then at the top of the market, you sell, getting ready for the fall. And then you have your huge amount of cash that you're willing to do that again. You see how you'll multiply the wealth? Just by understanding the cycle alone. right? Whereas if you had kept it, you could have probably lose half of your purchase power. In some cases, the stock market can even drop as high, it can drop lower, or at least very close to what it started at the beginning of the cycle. Sometimes it drops 50%, right? So you don't want to lose that purchase power. So understand cycles sometimes can help you multiply your wealth and maintain it over time for generational wealth, right? It also depends on which cycle you're working on. This could be a 5 to 8, 10 year cycle versus a 30-year cycle, right? So understanding these forces can be very important, guys. But let's play it again. And
Allowed me to anticipate and profit from the 2007 bubble turning into the 2008 bust. All these experiences led me to develop an almost instinctual urge to look to the past for similar situations to learn how to handle the future well. Changing orders.
this, this guy is scanning. He's scanning the entire time, the history, man. This guy is scanning history to understand. Yo, he has scientists, he has researchers, he has an entire team to understand the past before he makes his next move, right? That's how serious you got to understand the past. I like this animation because it may sound innocent, but there is a lot of wisdom in it, right? How you doing, we exciting ish? American has pretty much already fell. Yep. It happened back in 2008. The American fall won't be that huge. I you know why I disagree? You know why I disagree with that, Mr. We Signing Ish? Because of a comment that I saw earlier. Wait, let me pull that comment. Nah, we got nuclear. We'll be all right. Right? We got nukes. We'll be all right. The thing is, other people got nukes too. All right? Russia has nukes. China has nukes. Crude oil, wheat, gold are rising. They are rising. Yes, they are rising. I agree. How about stocks? Because remember what his principal said? Stocks, gold, and commodities. And my question is, do you think he's buying stocks, gold, and commodities? You could do maybe gold stocks, but stocks in general are not doing well, are they? It all depends on timing. But very interesting comment, sir. Let's get into it.
Over the last few years, three big things that hadn't happened in my lifetime prompted me to do this study. First, countries didn't have enough money to pay their debts, even after lowering interest rates to zero, so their central banks began printing lots of money to do so. Second, big internal conflicts emerged due to growing gaps in wealth and values. This showed up in political populism and polarization between the left, who want to redistribute wealth, and the right, who want to defend those holding the wealth. And third, increasing external conflict between a rising great power and the leading great power, as is now happening with China and the United States. So I looked back. I saw that all these had happened together before, many times, and nearly always led to changing domestic and world orders. The last time this sequence happened was from 1930 to 1945. What exactly is an order, you might ask? It's a governing system.
All right, wait. Before we get to that, man, I love it. I love it. These animations are so good. So good. But you guys see it, man? First of all, you said that this happened before, right? Three things, key things that you can identify. Now, These animations are not random. Look at the position of when it happens. Here's the top of the empire, right? The top of the empire. Then the first thing that happens is money printing. Shout out to we and signing ish. That is exactly what he's saying here. But the fall is happening, but it doesn't mean that America fell. Not yet. There is a lot of room to go down. Then notice the intensity that increase, the wealth gap, because that money that is being printed, the people that are smart will get most of that money. So that money being printed is leading to the wealth gap issues, which create almost like a civil war within the empire, right? And as this civil war happens, creating more money still happens. Then you also have external factors where the rising power, back then it was the US rising, and then the British was falling, and then war happens. Right? And last time, and
Had
this was
happened
happening,
together before.
it was, let's see if I can see the two things. Last time it was happening was at the end of World War II, where the keys were being transmitted from British to British to US.
As is now happening with China and the United States. So I look back.
Look at that. Beautiful, eh? Beautiful. But what I want you guys to understand is the timing. It took a very long time for the US to go all the way here. And we could say that it took maybe 15, 20 years for the US to be here. But 2008, this is probably 2016, 17, 18. And then now we're right here. 2022, this is where we are, right on schedule, right here. This is why I made the video yesterday. Are we already in a World War III? Now, you might be wondering, why am I talking about World War III, about China and US, if the war is between Ukraine and Russia? That has nothing to do with China and US, right? Not necessarily. China may have some interest with Russia, and the US may want to instigate war because that will give them a good excuse to print more money in a time that the interest rate has been low the entire time. Because the interest rate was so low then that it stayed low for this entire time, and now they need to rise it a little bit just so that they can drop it again to print more money for this eventual attack that's coming. So that's what's currently happening right now with Russia and Ukraine is very dangerous, because it could escalate so quick to have this conflict happening, which is inevitable. Eventually, whether we have it this year, next year, in 5 years, this conflict will happen. According to history, 100% of the time, the rising empire always clash with the falling empire. That could sometimes lead a world war. Last time it happened, it led to a World War II. And now we're very close. As you see it in this drawing here, we met the criteria. We're well into this. Money printing leading to wealth gaps, right? And then we're seeing it, how Russia and Ukraine can escalate very quickly to this, right? So that's what I wanted to show you. And we're going to dive deeper in this video, but I wanted to show you that very quickly. Commodity market are open now. Crude oil and wheat gapping up. This time will be different. When America officially falls, the East will take charge. Yes. They will not have dominant player like before. It will be a group this time, China and Russia together. Hmm. Interesting. I haven't considered this, but if you're looking at the way that the war is setting up right now, one thing's for sure, there will be an alliance between Russia and China if we are in a World War III. This is like the question is India is going to join this alliance, yes or no? And I think India will join this alliance. Karen, if you're still here, I will make a part two of that video that I made yesterday because I have some new content that we can dive deeper, especially talking about this topic. What will India do when and when they are in between Russia and China? And I think you'll be surprised. I think you were saying yesterday that you don't think China and India will partner with Russia or China. I think you'll be surprised. You'll be very surprised about what history has to tell us. So yes, I think I'm thinking about doing. I wanted to do a different video on Wednesday, but I think I might have to talk about that on Wednesday on part two. So if you can tune in on Wednesday. But hey, what's up, Andre Terry? How you doing? But let's get into it, guys. This is beautiful, guys. This is very important. Love I love that we were able to see that. And again, he made it so clearly to understand. When you the first thing that happened, that is I identified seven stage of an empire. This stage right here is stage five. All the previous stage is going to lead to the rise of the empire. When you get to stage five, you initiate the money printing, and that leads to different things, and that eventually leads to the clash between the rising empire and the falling empire. And then eventually you see the trend, right? So regardless of that clash, the trend will go down for the US. Let's go over that again and then let it play too.
Back. I saw that all these had happened together before, many times, and nearly always led to changing domestic and world orders. The last time this sequence happened was from 1930 to 1945. What exactly is an order, you might ask? It's a governing system for people dealing with each other. There are internal orders for governing within countries, typically laid out in constitutions. And there is a world order for governing between countries, typically laid out in treaties. Internal orders change.
There are a different way to play the game, guys. There's a different level to this game. Most of us are within the constitutions, right? But there are constitutions within countries. That's what the world order is. And then when we hear about new world order, it simply means the new treaty of the new empire that will replace this. So, oh Lord, look at this current world order right now, right? We have US, you have China. So let's say there is a switch. It's usually the rising empire that takes over, and then the US will be the second place. But that will bring the new world order. Oh Lord. Now, if you believe about the conspiracy, what they have to say, and you see, I mean, you let me put it this way, right? The law of the fittest. It's usually whoever is in power, the leader. That's what that the world seems to follow the philosophy of the leader. And what is the philosophy of China? All I gotta say, guys, if you have kids, you may wanna get them to understand the language that are being spoken in mainland China. That could be an advantage in the future. I think English will still be dominant, but there are too many empires that spoke English that spread it all around the world. So there is no way you're going to replace English. But interesting, right? Let me play that again. But very quickly, let me go. That's going to be a long video, guys. I won't play. I don't know if I'm going to play it everything, but we right now I love what I'm hearing, man. I love what I'm hearing. Before I go any further, do you think India will side with China anyway? You know what? Let's save that question for Wednesday. Okay? because I think once you're going to go through the video review that I'll be able to do, we'll be able to make a much more informed opinion about this question right here. All right. So, but I want to answer it with you, like when we both are seeing the same thing. Um, yep. Countries really get screwed in 2000. Exactly, right? Let's get into it later. Okay, let me see. Let me see. There is a changing of the guards happening and all that. Yes, I 100% agree. I 100% agree. And you know what? This could happen within this decade. This is how, especially with what's happening with Russia and Ukraine right now, that could be the start of the changing the guards happening. Which is why we need we need a resolution quick, man. Because and it doesn't seem so we'll get it. Yeah, English will dominate. I agree. China won't be that hands-on. China will mostly likely close its door when it reaches the top spot. One of the things I want to I'm going to let this video play quickly because I want to get into another discussion, and maybe that's a topic for another stream. Who is next? After let's say China, let's agree China is going to win this and is going to be at the top for the next treaty, right? The changing world order will go to China. Let's agree on that. Who's next? Is it Germany? Is it Japan? Is it Russia? Is it a partnership between Russia and China? Or is it an African country? Is it India? African visionary, how are you doing? Is the next country that is going to be a rising empire? Someone mentioned Nigeria at the beginning. I don't know, man. Haiti. Oh man, I wish this could happen, man. I wish Haiti could be right now. Look at the level of the game, guys. There is the constitutional level, which is within countries, and then there is the world order with the treaties. We're not even in the top 10 of this conversation here, let alone Haiti has. I don't think Haiti is in the top 50 of this conversation here. So we have a lot of room to grow. But there was a time China was not even in the room too, and very quickly they rose. Very quickly they rose. So who knows? Maybe Haiti has their days. Maybe it's going to be a treaty between Haiti, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, right? The entire Cuba, the entire Caribbean, right? That could be a strong treaty. Cuba has nukes. Do they? I mean, they could have nukes. At least they have the bigger army than us. And then we could partner with Jamaica, right? They have them rhythms. They can supply us with jerk chicken, supply the entire army with food. And then we have Haiti, right? With some spiritual protection. Make a Caribbean empire, right? The resources that we have is hot weather. When the entire world needs hot weather, they come to us and we control this treaty. Oh man, yeah, that's it, man. That's it. Good boy. So maybe it's going to be a black country. It was next. Who knows? Who knows? But one thing for sure, man. When I see this video right here, it motivated me, man. It motivated me to do whatever I can to get my country at least in the discussion. At least in the discussion. But let's listen to it again and let's go through it because I wanna get to the end. Who is next after China?
Between countries, typically laid out in treaties. Internal orders change at different times than world orders, though whether within or between countries, these orders typically change after wars. Civil wars within countries, international wars between countries. They happen when revolutionary new forces defeat weak old orders. For example, the U.S. internal order was laid out in the Constitution in 1789 after the American Revolution, and it is still operating today, even after the American Civil War. Russia got rid of its old order and established a new one with the Russian Revolution in 1917, which ended in 1991 with a relatively bloodless revolution.
By the way, it's still the reminiscent of that is going on right now with Russia and Ukraine, right? Back then it was the USSR. That's the order that they're talking about. That USSR was broken. That led to many independent countries, part of that USSR. Now, what's going on right now? It's still that breakup, right? Remember we were talking about a bad divorce. It's still the effect of that bad divorce that we're seeing in Russia and Ukraine right now. But the way that US is playing it, it's trying to get the excuse to print more money without being directly involved in the war. But eventually that's going to pull pull them in the war. And eventually I think that's going to lead to the clash that's going to dethrone them. Right? Let me see. You guys are having fun in the chat. Not African countries has nuclear missile at all. I mean, no African country. Man, who knows, man? Guess what happens when there are wars like this? There are casualties. When there are casualties like this, there are lots of guns for sale. There is a lots of guns at discounts. You remember what happened when USSR broke? Remember what happened? How many guns were for sale at a discount? Have you ever watched the movie from was it Nicolas Cage, The God of War? Talks a lot about that. Who knows? Maybe an African country could manage to get at least one nuke to after that clash. Because hey, Russia, who knows, man? Who knows? At least one nuke. Hey, maybe one nuke won't trigger. Maybe they will send one nuke to a country, and then something will happen to this nuke, and it will not trigger, and then it would land on a mountain or something, and then a black country will go and get and take it, and we reverse engineer that, and then there you go, we have one nuke. Oh man, I'm just messing up with you guys. Eastern philosophy is very different from the West. It is. And I made a short earlier this week, guys, about what the Ministry of Foreign Affairs had to say about this event happening between Russia and Ukraine. This is wisdom at its best, guys. This is wisdom at its best. It was graceful, it was powerful, it was humble, it was sympathetic, and it was threatening. All within 40 seconds. God damn. Genius. Beautiful. Just listen to my shorts. You'll understand what I mean. But it was a lot of things, and that was wisdom right here. Eastern philosophies, Eastern countries, they're very wise. They have gone through a lot. They have been playing this game of power for a long time, internally and externally. Right? It's big.
China began its current internal order in 1949 when the Chinese Communist Party won the Civil War. You get the idea. The current world order, commonly called the American World Order, formed after the Allied victory in World War II when the U.S. emerged as the dominant world power. It was set out in agreements and treaties for how global governance and monetary systems work. In 1944, the New World Monetary System was laid out in the Bretton Woods Agreement and established the dollar as the world's leading reserve currency. A reserve currency is a currency that is commonly accepted around the world, and having one is a key factor in a country becoming the richest and most powerful empire. With a new dominant power and monetary system established, a new world order begins.
All right, guys. All right. Are you listening? Are you taking games? You understand how to play the game? First of all, if you want to rise to the top, this is one key criteria: having the status of a world reserve currency. Right? So that means, let's say China will be the next rising, or the next leader. Their currency is going to be the leader, the world reserve currencies. But I find this very hard to believe because the yuan right now is not, it hasn't been looking good for a while. But who knows? But remember, they all the factory of the world, right? And that's what I find it very interesting what Mr. Insaning Ish said. A partnership between China and Russia. Oh, that could be bad. That could be something. I mean, ruble is not doing well either. But between Russia and China, they would hold a lot of what the world needs.
These changes take place in a timeless and universal cycle that I call the Big Cycle. I'll start with a quick overview, then give you a more complete version, and then
Wait, let's see the complete version.
give you a more complete version.
Oh, look at that. New World Order. Okay, so that's new, I guess. So after it's being changed, peace, prosperity, productivity, productive debt growth. Uh-oh, debt. That means that's usually phase three of a empire, when they start leveraging debt to increase their army. Financial bubble, big wealth gap already. Ooh, interesting. Oh, it starts here, and it's kind of like mature on here. Reserve currency happens around here, and then income rises. Competitors copy. Ooh, that's interesting. Competitors copy. That's exactly what China did. So one way you can understand who's going to be next is who's copying better the technology of the current world leader. Huh. I wonder if China studied history and started repeating this, because there seems to be the only country right now in modern history that is applying every single thing that I see here. Overstretch. But hey, China is well within here. I think China is right here. Remember that thing that happened with China and the real estate company, right? Financial bubble and big wealth gap. I don't know about wealth gap yet in China, but they definitely leverage debt. China is right here, whereas the U.S. overstretches, final bust, economic downturn, printing money and credit cards, revolutionary wars, debt, political restructuring. Okay, so I would say we're right here. That revolution in wars. I mean, there is definitely a revolution in the media with cancel culture, with what else? With the wealth gap, right? That financial wealth gap here. That's basically what we're talking about here again. And remember the three things that had to happen before we get to the eventual clash: money printing, wealth gap, and then this. So the clash that happens. Big cycle. So when we're talking about time, this could take anywhere from 200 years to 300 years, right? It could take 300 years for this to fully happen. So, and US has been on a rise for a while, right? US has been on a rise for a while. So let's say this is half, and let's say beginning of World War II is no. Well, beginning of World War II was here. So yeah, we way past the top. We're on the downside. 2008 was here. Yeah. 2008 was here. Beginning of World War II was here. So we finished the top of the US. We're on the downside. So now it's going to be, how long did it took us to rise to here? And that's how we can estimate how long it's going to for us to fall from here. But now we gotta factor when the new world order was. Are we going to say 1776, or that was the foundation of the country? We're going to have to picture to time the beginning of the cycle for the US to better predict when it's going to end. But one thing's for sure is within this decade, I feel we're going to see this. I think we're going to be in a revolutionary war and the debt political restructuring. That's to me, this is the next 15 years. Right here. Right here. Next 15 years. But we'll see. We'll see. But man, these diagrams are beautiful, and they are very. This is something you got to watch again and pause and think about and research. So many things to watch over. Let me go very quickly on the channel on the chat before we move forward. There will be a basket of currencies after the dollar. No one is taking the RMB. RMB. Reserve monetary. I don't know what B stands for, but so what do you mean by RMB? Let me know in the chat. Yeah, I think before we get to the to one single currency, it could be a basket of currency. I could agree. I could see that happening. I don't know yet how it will happen, but I don't think this is far fetched. Doesn't China do something with their currency to kind of misrepresent it? How well? Yes, they are. They got to do whatever it takes to get to the top, just like the US did, right? It will be a digital gold. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, and XRP will definitely have something to play with that. We'll see. Digital currency and gold. That's what SEC is slowing down the XRP right now and Ripple. That's my take, right? Well, who knows? China will be the following. China is following the US blueprint of warfare tactic. Not necessarily. Right now, I can tell you China is following the blueprint of Empire Rise very fast. I haven't seen in history an Empire Rise so fast. I think that's one thing that China is doing well. But the faster the rise, the faster the fall, which is why we need to start this conversation. Who is next, Mr. African Visionary? Great name, by the way. Great name. Who is next? Because if China is going to fall very fast, if we're going to be next, we need to act quick. Can we be next? Can we do the Caribbean nations? Caribbean United Nation. Hey, Corinne. Are we next? It has always been the operating standard where the financial of wars of conflict fund all sides. Yes. RMB is China's currency, I think. Do you won? Yeah, okay, you won. My bad. All right. Yeah, I could agree with that. Not just the RMB, but I don't see Chinese play ball with other. I mean, the thing is, they could if it's. We'll see, man. We'll see. I'm very curious on how it's going to end. World War III will be US versus Russia and Iran. No, China will be in there too, my man. And it will not just be the US. It will be US and Canada. Right? France could have its part. But the thing is, US and France and Russia has close ties. So I don't know. But I would say US, Canada, I would say Russia, China, Iran could get into play with that. I agree. India could get into that. I agree. And the NATO countries, right? The NATO countries could side with the US. We could have Germany. We could have England. There's so many things that could happen. But the thing is, World War III will be very big. It would include all the 9 countries that have nukes.
Version, and then direct you to my book if you want more. As I studied the 10 most powerful empires over the last 500 years and the last 3 reserve currencies, it took me through the rise and decline of the Dutch Empire and the guilder, the British Empire and the pound, the rise and early decline in the United States Empire and the dollar, and the decline and rise of the Chinese Empire and its currencies. as well as the rise and decline of the Spanish, German, French, Indian, Japanese, Russian, and Ottoman empires, along with their significant conflicts, as measured in this chart. To understand China's patterns better, I also studied the
Yo, when you hear the poofs, when you see the little poofs, it's wars. He's doing it on an animated version, but when you see the poofs, it's not anything. It's not like small, right? It's wars. Whether it's civil war, whether it's world wars, whether it's war between countries, conflicts, it's not just peaceful. It could end up peaceful and prosperity at the end of the cycle, but during these interactions, whenever you see a cross like this, a cross like this, these are wars. Whenever the countries cross, like, because it's whoever thinks is in power will never let the other ones rise in power in peace like that. Sometimes it could happen with just economic power, but it's not all the time it's going to be like very violent, but oftentimes it is, especially in the past. In the past it was. In the modern times it has become a little bit more subtle, but with the World War II, World War I, World War II, World War III, and all the wars in between, to keep that the US high, it's interesting. Now look how early, look at the US curve. Look at this. 1750. We gotta establish when the New World Order for the US started. I don't think it started at 1750. But look how long, look how fast the rise was and how high it stayed. Level relative to peak on the y axis. No empire was higher than the US. And that's why I said English will be king, because look how long English was starting, and even back then they were conquering worlds, right? Even back then they were like traveling and settling, right? But look at how high it got, and on the downside, it got to another English empire. So this section right here, they've been very high and very influential in the world, and that's why English is king. Yeah, Spanish, Dutch, they haven't got to the Western world. Spanish technically did, and that's why they had South America, but North America is for British, Canada included, and a lot of countries in Europe, in a way. So English is king because of these two empires here, and how long and how high and influential they got. But Chinese, look at Chinese, look at the history of Chinese, and look at how long they've been playing this game, right? And then you look at this curve. This curve was heading high. That means if we were looking at back 500 years prior, it was lower and it was rising. And these were the Chinese empires, right? And falling. That's probably opium right here, right? That led to a clash, British with Chinese. That I know that led to a clash, right? And then I haven't seen a clash before. And look at this. I don't think that was a war, but that was definitely in terms of economic power. And look at how fast China rose from 1950 all the way to here compared to other empires. This is beautiful, man. This is a beautiful chart of history to show what's going on. And I want you to understand the wisdom that comes from playing the world empire game for so long. The Chinese dynasties, right? The emperors, Where is Japan in all that? Japan is in purple. Look at Japan here. And that was the samurai guys, right? And then what happened with with Japan? That the British came with guns, kill all the samurai. I have dreams about that. I think I was a samurai soldier at some point. I have dreams about that ever since I was a kid. Have you guys ever see The Last Samurai by Tom Cruise? That's how the British plowed through the Japanese Empire, right? What else we can see? It's a beautiful chart. I love this chart, but it's a little bit complex. Let's see if we can summarize that better. Let's see. But it's interesting to go over it and see.
This with their India as the rise and early decline in the United States empire and the dollar, and the decline and rise of the Chinese empire and its currencies, as well as the rise and decline of the Spanish, German, French, Indian, Japanese, Russian, and Ottoman empires, along with their significant conflicts, as measured in this chart. To understand China's patterns better, I also studied the rise and fall of
Oh, beautiful. That's what I wanted to see. Oh man, they even have the names. Oh, I'm going to research this so much. Tang Dynasty, Song Dynasty, Yuan Dynasty, Ming. Oh, thank you, sir. And you know what he even has? He even has the other empires in this chart. Oh man, you see, within this is a 43-minute video. If you just watch it very quickly, you're going to get a lot from it. But man, if you start breaking down just the information alone, there is so much wisdom in this. Thank you. Oh man, I'm so happy I saw this. I actually saw this video before. I didn't even catch that. So now I'm happy. Oh man, China has been playing this game for a long time. That's why they're so wise. That's why they're so wise. It really makes you wonder: is communism is the way to go? Because they uh they got experience, man. They got experience. US is too new. It's a baby. Too new of a country to be fighting with so much wisdom. There's no way the US is going to beat China. No way. And that peak, nowhere in history we've seen a peak so quick. Look at that. 1950, 2000. And at this point, guys, they're controlling the world market in terms of industries, the world manufacturers. And they're not even at the top yet. God damn. Whew. No, communism is not the way. Well, hey, some might say China is probably more capitalist than the US right now. Right? They have a balance between communism and capitalism that seems to work. I can tell you for a fact, I'm taking notes from my country because my country is not ready for democracy right now in Haiti. If you want to build that Caribbean empire, I don't think that will be done through democratic power. It will be done to something like this. Right? It makes you wonder, man. It makes you wonder. But interesting. Where is the African empires? My question to you is, have they played the game at this high of a level? Have they reached, have any of the African empire reached world reserve currency? I don't know. To be honest, I'm actually don't know. I'm very curious. But if we're studying the last 500 years, no. If we're studying the past, my question is, when we're talking about world army, when we're talking about like world domination or conquering, when we're talking about economic power, have any African empire got that level? Right? That's what I would want to know. And I would want to know more about this Ottoman Empire that could have its roots somewhere there. and I see clashes between previous empires, European empires. So I wonder what they have to do there. But interesting point, right? Best channel on YouTube. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. How are you doing, Mr. Confused Lead? Short answer, yes. Oh, how about the title? Let's see, man. Let's see. Go ask the people in the communist country is communism do it. Look, I agree. If you're looking at it from Turkish. Oh, okay, cool. Thank you for letting me know. Turkish. When I think about Africa, I don't think about Turkey. Anything in the Middle East, I don't. They're African. They're in the African continent for sure, but they have a total different way of seeing the world than the bottom half, right? So I don't know. When I think of Africa, I think of the West Africa, maybe East Africa, South Africa, and somewhere in the middle. But I wonder. I'm really curious about African empires. How do they play within this chart? If we had to make a chart and put, let's say, the year zero after BC, year zero after Jesus Christ, all the way to 2000, where would African empire fit within this chart? And we're looking at levels here, and look at level zero. So would it be a flat line here, or would it be like maybe at least 0.2? That's what I'm asking. But China has been playing this game for a long time. And basically, another way to size it is, how do you size the level? Is it based on their army? Is it based on conquering space? Because I don't think these people were traveling back then, but I'm pretty sure they had a big army, right? I mean, it took a huge dynasty to do the Chinese wall. So that shows a lot of strength and power. So China has been playing this game for a long time. I'm afraid for the US, man. I'm afraid for the US. You guys have no chance with this enemy, with this dragon. Let's see what he has to say.
Chinese to understand China's patterns better, I also studied the rise and fall of Chinese dynasties and their monies back to the year 600. Because looking at all these measures at once can be confusing, I'll focus on the four most important ones: the Dutch, British, US, and Chinese. You'll quickly notice the pattern. Now let's simplify the form a bit. As you can see, they transpired in overlapping cycles that lasted about 250 years, with 10 to 20-year transition periods between them.
There you go. We were talking about cycles earlier. Now we have a time. We have a time to do it, right? We could say 200-year cycle or 250-year cycle. Or at least after every 200 years, we can expect to see this clash, change of the guard. Shout out to Peter Investor M, coming, right? And look at this. China is heading. It's heading for the US right now. This clash is imminent. According to history, this clash is bound to happen. The question is when. It's not if, it's when. Is it going to be in this decade? Is it going to be in the next 2 years with the world war that we currently see unleashing right now with Russia and Ukraine, that will pull the US, would pull the NATO into it, and will eventually pull China into it? Will we see this? But now we have a time, guys, 250 years. That if we're estimating what the British country were not a 250-year-old country. They were not a 250-year-old country. However, the New World Order started 250 years, and then 250 years later, that was the end of that order entirely. They're still rocking. They still have nukes. They're still innovating. They still have their own currency, which is technically a dominant one, but it's not to the level of the US. So they're not irrelevant, not like the Dutch. And that's the other thing you need to know is the further the the further behind they were, the less the more irrelevant they are in the present, right? British is still close relative to the US, so that's why it's still there. But as Chinese going to rise, you're going to see the irrelevancy of the British Empire the more time goes on. Now, could we say that China is heading towards a 250-year cycle? Or are we going to see the shortest empire right now? That's the next question. Is this empire that started in China, and let's say it started in 1950, is it going to be the first 100-year um, empire as opposed to the is this curve is going to be like this, very small as opposed to the 250-year, or is it going to be about at least 200 years and maybe 250 years? That's the question we need to ask. But we'll see, we'll see.
50 years, with 10 to 20-year transition periods between them. Typically, these transitions have been periods of great conflict because leading powers don't decline without a fight.
Exactly.
So how am I measuring an empire's power?
Well,
In this study, I used 8 metrics.
Okay.
Each country's measure of total power is derived by averaging them together. They are education,
oh, so the 8 that he measures, that's how he get the scale from 0 to 1 by the average. Oh, interesting. I didn't even catch that the first time.
by averaging them together. They are education, inventiveness and technology development, competitiveness in global markets, economic output, share of world trade, military strength, the power of their financial center for capital markets, and the strength of their currency as a reserve currency.
Okay, so
Because these
this is why the US is so high in this chart. I get it now. This is why the US is so high in the chart. It's because of all these factors, and the US has been rocking for a long time with all these factors. Let's take of education, for example, right? Think of the Ivy Leagues, think of MIT, right? For a very long time. Now, think of innovation and technology. After the World War II, a lot of scientists from the Germans moved into the US. Lots of innovation, lots of patents. So, and then you have Silicon Valley, you have Bill Gates, and the power of Bill Gates and computers around the world controlled by the US. Competitiveness, mostly around 1940s to 1990s, maybe 1980s, but they were very competitive around these times. Manufacturing wise, best cars in the world, at least the cheap, most affordable cars in terms of quality and quantity, economic power, very competitive. And also they attract many people around the world to go to their place because of freedom. They're selling the American dream, right? So they're attracting the best around the world that alone from that output. Before before 1971, the US was outputting a lot. The US was what China is now, the manufacturers of the world. But when you factor that they were doing that even around World War One, with the invention of technologies like manufacturing and mass producing on a level where they were able to supply for World War One, then expand the manufacturing from that to World War Two. Very interesting things. Trade, right? Stock market, global trade. They've been the world market, and they are still the world market. Military. I don't think anyone can defeat the U.S. in terms of what they achieve with the military. We talk about the military complex, the industrialized military complex, and they put military station all around the world. Financial center, World War, like World Trade Center. I don't know, man. Like that is interesting. That is interesting. So China is really going after every single point that you see listed in this chart. Education, yes, yes. Innovation, they first started copying. Now they're ahead of 5G. They are, oh man, this is so interesting. They're very competitive. They're already outputting what the world needs. Trade, well, if they're outputting, they're slowly enough, they will control the trade. Military is small for now, but we'll see. Financial center, I don't know, but interesting. Very interesting chart. Let me pay a tribute to the chart because I know I've been 100% on communism. US is low key a communist. Yes, yes, so true. And yo, the best example of that is Canada. The Moors. Oh, okay, they are the Moors. Yeah, the Moors were very powerful in the early days. Um, I would say year 400, 500. Yeah, a lot of conquering Italy in Moors. Interesting. But yeah, example of that is Canada with the trucker situation. It shows you very well what happened. Be careful. I use one account to buy Bitcoin, tweet, suspended, or close, hack, but I have to be a mole. Okay. Yeah, with cryptocurrencies, you have to protect yourself. Buy a cold wallet, like a Ledger Nano S, to protect your cryptocurrencies. Damn, we need to step up our games. Thank you, sir. Yes, we do. We do need to step up that game because now we have a criteria to evaluate what is this the strength of an empire. And I love the way he does it. He approach it very in a scientific level, right? He approach it like a scientist, like a like an economic scientist. That's where his genius comes in, guys. He approached it like an economic scientist, and the way that he measured it, guys, is fair. We cannot blame it on racism, guys. The way you approach it is fair. Education, innovation, competitiveness, output, trade, military, and then I think there was another one. Right? That's fair. Now, from that perspective, are there any African nation that, it doesn't have to be a master in all eight, but if you're a master in two, three, that would definitely give you a good number in this scale. And from that perspective, we may very well be a very low in the scale. Like I know for a time, Haiti was very good in education, so much that we were sending our best teachers in Canada to educate the population, the Canadian population. But output wise, military wise, innovation and technology wise, we sucked. So we wouldn't be anywhere close in that map, right? So interesting, man. Them butts. I gotta delete this butt. Give me a second. So interesting point, guys. African would be a flat line. We gotta step up our game. But that's what I'm saying. This video motivate me to make the best out of my country so that we could have something to look for and at least be competitive and at least be in the top 50. Even if you're not in the top 10, top 5 is looking at the top 4 right now. Top 50, we could make it, man. I hope it's not too late, too much time or drama to talk about the US refused to unify on anything. Yeah. Yep. We'll see. But eventually, regardless of what they do, it's inevitable. They will fall. Every empire rise or fall. Now, here's a question for you guys. No, noticing the chart, and you notice that every empire that rise, they fall. Does that mean we should not be rising to the top, but at least rise to, let's say, to be competitive, but not to the top, so that we can last longer? Is that a good way to play the game, as a way to be kind of like a marathon instead of the? It's a marathon. It's not the sprint, right? Sprinting high, because that's one of the reason why I predict China is not going to last 250 years as a top of the empire, because of the measures they take to rise there too fast. The one child policy will be one of the leading factor that will be the decline of the Chinese empire. The one child policy. They're going to pay a lot for this. All those souls for decades that been sacrificed will come at a price. That's my prediction. You guys know I'm a little bit of spiritual in that. And those abortion, knowing that you're going to have a girl, it doesn't, and you could see the signs. And I respect China in a way, man. They see the signs early and they're taking measures to fix it. One of the problems they're going to have, they're not going to have enough women for the men. But what they have noticed is that's going to lead a generation of simps. And one of the things they're doing is they're promoting education, they're promoting innovation. With their credit score, they're promoting family building. At some point, they might even promote polygamy to solve. I mean, it would polygamy would work if there was more women than men, but they're doomed, guys. But they're at least taking measures, guys, to promote a lot of things to make sure that they can maintain the longevity of the society and make sure that they go opposite to what the West is doing. For example, TikToks in China is making viral of technology and innovation videos viral, whereas TikToks in the US is making videos of stupid things viral. That is a war. This is a type of war, guys. It's just not violent. It's not gun wise. It's not nuclear. It's a more wise form of war. But man, it is efficient because they're playing the long term game. Long term wise, the next generation is going to be stupid. They're going to make stupid decisions. That's going to lead to the fall of the decline of the empire faster. Oh, and they are fueling it, making money out of it. God damn. TikTok, guys. When Trump was talking about banning TikTok, that would have been a smart move for the U.S. empire. They're making war with TikTok, guys, and it's the same way they're making war with 5G, like Huawei. Same way, playing the long-term game. In terms of largest numbers, army personnel, the top four are one China, two Russia, three US, and Brazil. Army, really? Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, if we're talking about just army, right? But then if you put the education, innovation, trade, competitiveness, it's a great, I love the way they measured it because that is a common point that all countries that get at the top of the market, the one that signed the treaty or the one that write the treaty of the world order, that's probably a common point that all of them had. China is not so innovative, not yet. But what they're doing with AI, I would disagree, man. What they're doing with AI is going to be the key to the future, right? That's where we're heading. And they're in advance in telecommunication compared to the US and AI. Just wait until they invade Taiwan. Just wait until they invade Taiwan and control the supply of a certain commodity that the future will be desperate for. Just you wait. The US will not achieve this due to the mindset of the American. Absolutely. South Africa and Ghana As next, Ghana, South Africa. I hope so, man. We gotta be. We may not be right after China because China might fall so fast because of the one-child policy, but we might be right after. And one of the things I'm noticing, guys, is the rich Asians, the rich Chinese people. There is generation. If you don't know how to deal with wealth, it will only take three generation for you for your family to lose all the wealth. And a lot of these people, the rich Chinese, they're exiting China and they're being influenced by the cultures of the West. This will lead to the downside of China. So that one child policy and that if they don't have a if they don't have a problem to fix it quick, there it's not going to be well for them. Everything mentioned in the eighth strength we end signing. Oh yeah, sorry. Did you not know you were? Did not know you were so spiritual. I don't talk much about it on this channel, but trust me, man. Trust me. I've been a traveling man to say the least. Let's see. They're not so innovative, but they did send astronaut in space. Indeed, because they copied their way to innovation, guys. You saw it. It's a pattern for the rising empire. China has is an aging population, and they're not going to be able to replace that aging population fast enough. So we'll see. We'll see. I think the one child policy is going to be a serious factor in a downside. And the army of simps that they're generating because women control, because there's not enough women there, so they control the power. They can choose who they want to. That's just one out of many things I see. China owns Africa, not all Africa, but hey, that could be a good thing. That's why I'm saying. That's why I'm saying we are next. Because think about it this way: there was a time the U.S. could say they own China, right? They own all the industries in China. They use them to get cheap labor, and then China's used that to re-engineered the innovation, and then they put that innovation to their use as opposed to the US use, right? Now China is in a state where their population is rising, they need cheap labor, they're looking at Africa. So if Africans are studying history and they are thinking and they're ambitious enough to rise to the top of the world, they should be taking notes, re-engineers what the Chinese are showing them. And if China is wise enough, they're going to keep that innovation locked tight, even if they are in Asia and in Africa. Sorry. This is getting beautiful, man. Let me play this because yeah, it's getting late. I may not play all of it. We may have a part two if you want to. But let's go over the eight strengths again, guys.
And the strength of their currency as a reserve currency. Because these
Oh, by the way, that's it. Reverse status as a that's probably the eighth key, the most important key in this whole thing. Because a country like Brazil may have a lot of these factors, but if they don't have the reserve currency, then they don't have the leading factor that's going to increase the countries in terms of wealth, right? Because the ability to control the world currencies and kind of like forex and all that, and that gives you a huge advantage above the other ones. That's really how you rise to the top. I don't know if you notice. Um, it seems that you notice. Let me show you something because I'm not going to play the entire video because I know he broke it down later, but I want to show you something on the chart and you will understand something very important. Let's see. Was it here? Let me put it on mute and let it play and I'll talk over it. There was something so important. You know what? I'll find it for you. Because even if I don't break everything, I gotta break this one because this is going to show you the difference between uh, the top 50 countries and in the top 5 countries. Let me see. I'll find it for you guys because it's so important. I, I promise I'll find it. But if you remember, on the chart, we had a breakdown of a full cycle, right? We had a breakdown of the full cycle. And then one of the things that happened prior to getting to the top was getting the world reserve currency, right? That was crucial. And you do not get to the top until you get that status. It's a clear status that you need to get to the top, right? So that's why when you're looking at the top of the line chain, I agree with this, with having the world reserve currency as a metric to evaluate an empire, right? The world empire, the leading empire. Because I guess you could say there is many empires, but it doesn't mean they're all leaders. I wish I'm gonna let it play like this and pause it because it's so important. It's a small details, but it plays a huge factor in in understanding that will be key because as a country, if you don't understand that, you don't even have your whole, like, let's say, ambition. Your ambition is limited. If you want to be to the top, you gotta have the right knowledge and then structure your ambition in a way to get there. Man, I can't find it, but maybe I'll make another 10-minute video about that throughout my channel. But I'll let it play until it goes. Let's see what happened. China will build Africa to the next superpower. Exactly. I agree. I think so. That I think this is what I'm saying. When you say China own Africa, it is not necessarily a bad thing. At first, I thought it was a bad thing, but until it was literally this week that I came to this eureka moment. At first, I was like, man, we can't let China own the entire continent like that. But at the same time, I'm like, wait a second. Interesting. If they put themselves in a situation that they can't go anywhere backward, the only way for them to go forward is by educating as many African people as possible. Then we would have, and then remember how long an empire lasts, right? It could last to 250 years. And right now we're at the first 50 years of the Chinese empire, and we're already being exposed to their innovation, to their technologies by them using us as a way to do their empires. So it's interesting. These these type of convos excite me. I'm gonna rewatch this stream. So much information. Yes, thank you very much for this. Thank you very much. Me too, man. They excite me too. I love it. That's why I wanted to at least do 2 hours. I'll close it soon. I think once I go over that last point, I wanted to talk to you guys. We'll close it. And I definitely encourage you guys to watch the whole thing. The whole thing. Oh, yes. There it is. Wow. There you go. That's what I wanted to break down for you guys. That is why. Let's put it bigger. Okay, maybe not. Guys, right there. Reserve currency. Right at this point. Remember, it happened after the World War II for United States. Right here. And now we're heading towards the financial crash, which this was 2008. So someone mentioned Brazil. Was it you, Peter Investor M, if you're still here? Brazil could have a lot of the eight factor, actually, a lot of the seven factor. But if you do not have the reserve currency, you do not get to the top. It is much harder to get to the top than it is to get to here. A lot of empires try rising there, and a lot of them fell along the way, like the Ottoman Empire. They haven't got to this step yet. I don't think they even had understood the concept of debt back then, right? But this is a key factor to get to the top. But it's funny because you don't get to the top until you do this, but this also like it's a double-edged sword. There is a lot of wisdom, guys, in this. It's a double-edged sword because you have to sell your soul to get a large amount of debt to get to the reserve currency status. And by doing so, you bringing your entire empire to some level of prosperity that they never seen in hundred in years, in centuries. But in doing so, you also guarantee that it's going to fall. Which is why I ask, is a good way to play the game is right below that level right here, right below the level of reserve currency, where you go after the eight metrics: education, innovation, competitiveness. You do that, and the only thing you don't go after is putting yourself in so much debt that it's forcing you to go to get to the reserve currency status. Or is a better way to play the game is to get to the top by having so much innovation and technology, and though even though when you fall you're still relevant, aka British Empire, right? Dutch is not a relevant empire, but it's still a top 50 country, right? It's still giving its citizen a good level of freedom and prosperity and peace that you wouldn't find in other countries. And maybe they wouldn't get to the top. Maybe they wouldn't get like that the way they are now if they didn't cross the top. So that's the philosophical questions I'm going to be meditating on to understand what is the best route for my country in Haiti or for the Caribbean for the Caribbean unite Caribbean. Remember we were talking about that Caribbean uh unity that we could do. So it's going to be interesting. Oh, you had it again. I could have waited here, man. All right, let's see. Let's get to a point where we can stop it, and then after I'll read the comment, and then we'll close the stream.
Leads to increased innovation and technology development, and with a lag, the establishment of the currency as a reserve currency. You can also see that these forces then declined in a similar order, reinforcing each other's decline. Let's now look at the typical sequence of events going on inside a country that produces these rises and declines.
Man,
Of events
sorry,
in each
guys.
other's
Sorry, this is too much. This is too good that I have to chime in on. Notice that he said, okay. Remember, we have the list here. We have the list of the eight things, right? Below, you can see it: education, information and technology, competitiveness, output, trade, military, financial, and reserve status. Now, he said the rise happened that way, and I can tell you, the education needs to happen first. Then that will lead to innovation and technology, which will lead to competitiveness and output and trade and military and financial, and then reserve status. He also said the fall happens in a similar way, meaning what? Because he only said it, he said it small. And I don't think he really emphasized that throughout that video. But this is key. This is a very important statement. The fall also happened in the same order. Remember, we're looking at the rise and falls of the U.S. empires in general, and we're evaluating U.S. empires. We're also evaluating the next in line, which is clearly China. Clearly China. Education get hit first. Have you noticed a decline in the education of United States, of Western societies in a whole? Yes? No? Let me know in the chat. Then, what falls after? Innovation. So, in the US, it's hard to notice, but if you look innovation and competitiveness, then you notice that we're being more and more, we have more competitions in China. Look at electric cars and what Chinese is doing, right? To the point where now Elon Musk has to go to China and eventually they'll get copied, right? 5G. China is very competitive with 5G to the point where the US has to ban 5G products and Huawei phones because they were going to dominate this market so hard, guys, that Trump was smart enough to ban Huawei and partner with Canada to limit Huawei. Because these are companies that are operating on behalf of the Chinese government. So instead of sending military, they're sending companies playing the business game, but still conquering the world through business. I'm taking notes. I'm telling you guys, I am taking notes because I'm gonna do the same on a family perspective. Spreading my seed everywhere. Shout out to Snuggle. We're talking about spreading seed globally. Oh man, but right, we can't really say US is not innovative anymore, but if we compare the innovation with the competitiveness, then we notice that hey, China is rising, and when we compare with AI, there's a problem. Output, yes, we're outputting a lot from technology, but we're not outputting the same in manufacturing anymore, right? Trades, we still have lots of trades. Take off the stock market, for example. So we're still competitive there. US and Canada and all that. Military, right? Still rocking, still kicking. But hey, now we're talking about what are we talking about again in military? It got equality, right? We're talking about equality in the military. Is that going to be the same strength? Is the military going to be as strong as past? Maybe they were going to be as strong in terms of guns, but if you put soldiers in the field and you have 50-50, 50% men, 50% women, are they going to have the same output as the enemy that's going to be 100% men? Soldiers in the field, right? So, interesting. Financial centers. If there is a crash in the world, is that going to cause a problem in the financial centers? We'll see. But remember, we already met the conditions of a fall of the U.S. empire, and we can notice a decline in those 8 factors as well. All right? Especially education. So that's why I wanted to bring that to your attention, guys. It's not just it's a small sentence that he mentioned, but there's a lot to gather from this.
The wiggles can be confusing. We can simplify it a bit to focus on the pattern of cause-effect relationships that drive the rise and decline of a typical empire. As you can see, better education typically leads to increased innovation and technology development, and with a lag, the establishment of the currency as a reserve currency. You can also see that these forces then declined in a similar order, reinforcing each other's decline. Let's now look at the typical sequence of events going on inside a country that produces these rises and declines. In a nutshell, the big cycle typically begins after a major conflict, often a war, establishes the new leading power and the new world order. Because no one wants to challenge this power, a period of peace and prosperity typically follows. As people get used to this peace and prosperity, they increasingly bet on it continuing. They borrow money to do that, which eventually leads to a financial bubble. The empire's share of trade grows, and when most transactions are conducted in its currency, it becomes a reserve currency, which leads to even more borrowing. At the same time, this increased prosperity distributes wealth unevenly, so the wealth gap typically grows between the rich haves and the poor have-nots. Eventually, the financial bubble bursts, which leads to the printing of money and increased internal conflict between the rich and the poor, which leads to some form of revolution to redistribute wealth. This can happen peacefully or as a civil war. While the empire struggles with this internal conflict, its power diminishes relative to external rival powers on the rise. When a new rising power gets strong enough to compete with the dominant power that is having domestic breakdowns, external conflicts, most typically wars, take place. Out of these internal and external wars come new winners and losers. Then the winners get together to create the new world order. And the cycle.
The winners get together to create the new world order. Oh Lord, have a mercy. Oh Lord. China and Russia, if they ever win, it's not going to be pleasant for the world, is it?
Cycle begins again. As I looked back, I saw that these cause and effect relationships drove the cycles of rises and declines all the way back to the Roman Empire. I saw how the stories of each one of these cycles blended together with others before, during, and after, in the same way as each individual story blends with others to make the epic 500-year story that is our collective history. And like human life cycles, no two are exactly the same, but most are similar. They're driven by logical cause and effect relationships that progress through stages from birth to strength and maturity to weakness and inevitably decline. However, that's like saying a person's life cycle takes 80 years on average, without recognizing that many are much shorter and many are longer. While age can be a good indicator of future longevity, a better way is to look at health indicators. One can do that with empires and their vital signs too. I found that by watching the indicators of power change, I was able to see.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, man, you gotta be a doc as an investor. You gotta be a doctor measuring the health of an empire, right? And this is thank you, Ray Dalio. Let me look at you in the eyes, man, as I'm saying this. I want to use my platform to say thank you, Ray Dalio, for this beautiful piece of content because you are leaving us with, especially us young people, millennials, you are leaving us with a wealth and wisdom of information that we can build on, leverage on. We don't have to spend 80 years to learn. We're not being taught this in school. Thank you very much for this. Thank you very much because, man, it makes it so simple. You approach it like a scientist, guys, an economic scientist. Now we have a way to measure the health of an empire. And now that we can do so, right? Weak, strong, all the 8 points that measures, like within the society, for example, that's going to lead you to the level of strength. We can see, where is a good place to invest in? Because if we're tracking the big cycle and we're tracking the small cycles, then as investors, we can put our money in the best place for long-term growth, right? For generational wealth. And when we talk about generational wealth, we're talking about three, four, 5 generations. So eventually, we're going to have to build a strategy to deal with the world, with the changing world order, right?
What stage a country was in, which helped me to anticipate what was likely to come next.
Mm.
Now, I'll take you through the big cycle in more detail. Give me 20 minutes, and I'll give you the last 500 years of history and
All right.
show you.
So for the rest, you will have to go and check it out yourself. The link is in this description below. But yes, we've been going there for 2 hours and 35 minutes. Let me go to the chat and see how it goes. But I hope you enjoyed it, man. I hope you enjoyed this. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it watching it a second time because there were many things that I didn't get the first time. And yeah, I really encourage that. So let me see what you guys are saying. Um let me see. No, it's not a good thing for China owning Africa along with China. Look, I used to think the same way. I used to think the same way, but it seems that if it's not cheap to get access to information, innovation, it's not cheap. It comes at a cost. Nothing is free. If one thing we can understand by studying the cycle, nothing is free. Every action has a reaction. If we want something, we have to lose something, right? And if we want knowledge and information, and we cannot come up with it on our own, we have to take it and steal it from someone else. And it seems so far that's what China has been doing in the last 15 years that helped them rise so fast to the point that they are become competitive. So could that be it's at least worth the experiment, because I don't think any black nation has done that in the last 1,000 years. So it is worth the experimentation. And if China is willing to play ball with us, better that than slavery, right? Better that than slavery. And to be honest with you, Haiti is a direct example of exactly the situation that I'm talking about. How did we have the knowledge to beat the French? It's by being slave to the French and studying the French and copying the French and copying their language. And eventually you have Toussaint Louverture, who is my biggest visionary of all time, who was a general in the French army, who was also general in the Spanish army, as he had to go there to learn more game, right? He was taking information from two empires, Spain that were on the downside and French that was on the upside, and right formulate the guerrilla. I don't know how you say it in English, but it's guerrilla. It's a form of warfare that we invented. Haiti invented guerrilla warfare. So we wouldn't be able to do that if we didn't get the base fundamental knowledge from the French and Spain and having gone through slavery. So I'm not saying slavery is a good thing, but sometimes it took that for us to have the knowledge and freedom, and the knowledge led to our freedom. So maybe it's going to take a modern version of it, which is economic, but at least it gives us our own time to study it. Changing Chinese are migrating to Africa. They are. Let them come. now, man. The let them come, but we need to educate our brothers to be like, yo, you know what's happening here, right? Let them come to the point where they have no choice but to play ball with us. Because if they don't want their investments to be burned to the ground, then they better play ball, right? Show us things, teach us things, right? We know where that leads, but you know where that leads. But if you want to buy time, teach us things. So let them come. But if you're not thinking of it that way, right? They play the long game. Chinese people, they play the long game. We black people, we have a tendency of being very emotional and not logical, and that forces us to play the short-term game. Let me go quickly because I know you may have some comments based on that. They are good at copying, not creating. I think it starts with that. I think it starts with that. I think it starts with copying. They are genius at copying. That's something. You got to use your strength to your favor, right? So I think it lead. I see sign. I'm in tech, right? I do see signs right now that all the copying that they have been doing, it's starting to show the results of their innovation. Guys, let's just say I know people that works at Huawei. Huawei is one of the leading telecommunication company in the world. And I do see enough signs to tell you that their copying is working. It's leading to innovation. All right. China will build Africa to the next. Yeah, I think I read that before. Sorry. Brazil is slowly but surely growing, finding reserve of oil, and they use in alternative energy, building their own cars, lots of mineral resources. Yes, they're in a position that they can really leverage um, their resources. The thing is their ambition that I question. The thing is, the next country, guys, if you notice, countries that are at the top, they're very ambitious. The conquerors, right? They're very ambitious. I don't know. I don't know about Brazil's ambition. They like samba, right? They like to chill and relax. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean that's what I'm saying. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to be at the top. Portuguese nation was an empire that was probably very close to the top, if not at the top at some point, right? Now they have Brazil, or they created Brazil thanks to that. Maybe the way to play the game is not necessarily be at the top, but be in with the game, with the tops, with the top five, the top tens. Maybe that's a good place to be. Maybe a good place to be is spending 500 years in the top 10 as opposed to 200 years in the top five, right? I don't know. See, why do you think I have been investing in Kenya since 2018? Before living in China, I never thought about Africa. It's because of China I started biz in Africa. Thank you, man. Hey, that's my next. Hey, I'm wrapping up my stuff around here so that I can get my investment to pay for my lifestyle so that I can jump in Africa, my man. I want to conquer Africa before China does it. Yes, my man. Thank you. And thank you for your stream, man. It really opened my eyes to the possibility of what's possible in Africa. Thank you very much for that. Yes, I think we read that. Let me go to the conversation I missed. Um what's going on here? African Americans are truly missing out on the gold opportunities on what China is doing in Africa. Man, yes. And that's what I'm saying, man. If we're aware, if we're having more of this stream, this conversation, and please, by all means, people, share that to as many people as you want. Let's grow that community, the wealth engineering community. And let's have this conversation, guys, because the more most people are not even educated, let alone being aware. You only pay attention on what you're aware of. And if you're not aware of what the possibilities, you're not going to pay attention to it, right? You know, if you don't pay attention to it, you're not going to be aware about it, and then you're not going to start strategize on how you can increase your wealth and generational wealth with these possibilities. Right now, China is the way to. Africa is the place to go because right, China is going to help bring it to the next level, and then they're setting up themselves to be the next empire. So right now, thinking that way, you don't have a 200 years mindset, you have a 500-year mindset automatically, just by being understanding how empire works, how understanding who's next. It hasn't happened yet, it may happen next 15 years. Who's next? And then the one after that, whoever is next is going to leverage Africa. So if you're already putting the seed, like Mr. Reinsigning Ish here, You're already putting the seeds in Africa right now before the next in line is already there on top. You have a 500-year advantage for when we black people will be on top. So that means when we are on top, your family can be leading that revolution, can be leading that. We could be the world. Someone. If you're thinking that way now, 500 years from now, you could create a Rothschild, the black version of a Rothschild family, just by understanding this concept and planning, putting seeds for it to happen. Right. So we got to start changing your perception because most of our people in our culture are thinking next 5 years, next 2 years. They don't think next 10 years, next 20 years, let alone 500 years. If we could just do 200 years alone, that would serve us a lot. So, yes, I agree with you, man. They're missing out, but we need to share that information with them as much as possible. They're not looking because they're not aware, but let's share that with them. Let's give them a vision to work on. Let's work on a vision to have at least one black country being getting the world reserve currency. Let's work on that vision. And if I have to bring Haiti there, I will. I don't know about Africa. I don't have influence there, but in my lifestyle, I can at least spark. I can at least spark the flame to get Haiti there. That's what I could do. So I'm gonna work on it, man. I'm gonna work on it. But in the meantime, I'm gonna get some wisdom and some lands and some investment in Africa, my man. Maybe it was always the tactic of the US to let China rise fast, fell fast. So in terms of China is investing in Africa, I don't know. I don't think they had a choice. I don't think they had a choice to deal with China. What they didn't expect is they didn't expect China is going to rise so fast. They underestimate China's ambition, right? JC Jamaica will provide food to the entertainment, the fast runners. Yo. Haiti got the Warriors. Oh man, we got them. We got them all right. We got them Warriors ready. These guys always looking to fight. They'll bring their own government down if the government just look at them sideways. Haitians are warriors, and they'll fight with their own hands, no guns. It was farmers that kicked the French away from the island, guys. Well, engineering. Sorry, guys. There's many comments I have to catch on. Holy cow! All right, guys. Let's go to the comments fast. Why do you think I have? Oh yeah, I read that before. Okay, wait. Did I? Yes, education is declining. No longer did it. Yep, exactly right. African visionary. Nice to meet you again. Nice to see you on the chat. My Afro vision to all of my Afro diaspora in the US, to all my Afro people in management position or leadership position, need to be created an Afro Manager Coalition program. Same times. Um, 1% at a time. Everyone works on their financial wealth, built the wealth, and eventually, when when it will be in our interest to do this correlation with it. Right now, the Afro management people where they're managing white people's like you see what I'm saying. You're managing white people wealth. You're not there yet. Rise to the top of your own company. Then we can start the coalition. Right? Then that coalition will have more meaning, more power. But if you're managing the white people company that they can fire at any time, you're not controlling shit. You need to have the stock owner, the majority stock owner of your own company that is a 500 Fortune 500 company that is providing some value to the world. Then let's work on that. So before we get to there, we have to educate our kids, ourselves, and how to increase our wealth. Then with that wealth, we go and we get the best education we could get. If we have to go to Ivy Leagues to get it, so be it. If we have to go to China to get it, so be it. If we have to go to England to get it, so be it. But let's go get it to the best school in the world, MIT, for example. Then we go out there and then we create value, but we own that value. We need to pay what? Oh, wait. That's it's sorry, I'm going. Paris Johnson, lots of gems. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Guerrilla warfare. Yes. Yes. We invented that, man, in Haiti. It happened during the War of Independence. And then the French figure it out what we did to them and they start doing it to other people. Them motherfuckers. Oh Lord. But we did that to them. We invent no history book will ever say it. But we did that to them. That's how we got them out of the country. Right? Agreed, JC. I think emotionally at times. I mean, this is our greatest strength. It is also our greatest weaknesses. We need to understand your strengths and your weaknesses. And if you could leverage your strength, our strength allows us to be the entertainment of the world. What can we do with this strength? We have the power to unite the world in sports and entertainment. This is a huge power. This is a power that the Chinese do not have. That's why they buy as much as they can in Hollywood to leverage the Hollywood talent to communicate to the world. They don't have that within them. Indian doesn't have that. No one has it best than us when it comes to communicating and assembling the world together through sports and entertainment. The US leveraged that to the maximum when it comes to controlling what the black can access. And that's the only route they let us succeed, sports and entertainment. But they control those shares. They control those stocks. They control most of the wealth. If we start understanding the true power and the true strength that we have and control our own wealth, then we put that wealth to go buy lands and go buy businesses in Africa and build and get ready for when China is going to be at the top, and then multiply that on a nation level. But if we control how the narrative and we can to sports and entertainment, we can communicate towards the world because think of it this way. NFL, right? NFL is a lot of companies around the world pay what was it $7 million for 30 seconds to expose themselves to the world? Who is playing those games in the NFL? Who is playing those games in the NFL? Right? It's black people. Every year, you see NFL, the full team is made of black people. They are the one who's so strong, so fast, so tall, doing all that. Black people. But what if we own the NFL? Right? Then the 7 million per 30 second would go to us. Because what really people are paying for is for your attention. And who's bringing that attention? The players. Right? The players are bringing that attention. If once we understand our true power, and it's how does the player get to that level? It's that emotion, the same emotion you have, Karine. That's the same emotion they have. It's that emotion that forces the world to be so captivated to us. So we need to understand our strengths, and every race and every culture have different strengths. Maybe for China, their strength is copying, but they're leveraging it to the fullest, to the benefit. We need to leverage our strength to the fullest. Right? JC, I see you, your private jet landing in, oh man. I wish I live long enough for this to happen, but this is what I truly wish. And I want to do it so I can inspire more people to go there and do it. But yes, I want my private jet to land on the motherland and buy real estate and buy businesses. Right? He's bringing a perspective that is involved playing fifth dimensional chessboard while we play second dimensional chess. Which one? I'll have to read the conversation prior to that. I'm trying to go very fast on the direct comments, but JC, there was an interview with the reggae artist that it spoke about a show he performed in Haiti. He had me laughing so hard. He said that the people started fighting in every time he started singing. Oh, I know, I know. We are warriors at heart. Before 2030, you have time, guys, to build something in Africa. Yes. Yes, that's what, man. I'm wrapping up my stuff around here as fast as I can, and I want to go there and build businesses, man. But I gotta wait at least until next year. Until next year, I would say 2024 would be the year for me where I'm going to go aggressively there. But I'm wrapping up stuff around here, man. If I make it alive enough, 2024, 2025, let's do it. Bringing my whole team. I'm going to be aggressive. Mostly black people, not 100%. Of course, yeah, mostly black people, not 100%. I agree with you. If you're talking about the NFL, yes, but mostly black people. If we remove ourselves, it will be a different league. If we put ourselves in the entertainment and we move, we will be a different style of entertainment, right? We do have something that is captivating the world. Like, you don't see, look at the guy like Snoop Dogg, right? Look at, did you guys saw the NFL's halftime show with Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre? Look, that type of creativity, innovation within arts has the power to attract the world. If you're looking at the top NFL, top halftime show of all time, first, you might say Michael Jackson, a black guy. Second, I would put what I saw this year as the second of the second halftime show that I've seen. That was probably arguably the greatest one. Again, that was at the cost of $7 million for 30 seconds of commercial times. Mhm, mhm. So all that to say, guys, that's our strength. You need to understand the strength, and as a collective, we'll need to leverage our strength to its maximum. And our strength has the power to communicate around the world, and that means we can communicate around the world to bring the world to our fight, to our struggle, to understand us. And if the better you can communicate with others and be empathetic with others, that requires a strong emotional intelligence, right? Which for us is almost natural. Then you can divert war in a way, right? You could divert war. You could still get to your result without having to fight for it. And that's very powerful. That is extremely powerful. That takes a lots of wisdom. It takes a lot of time to go through pain, which we have, so we can understand other people's pain. We can talk to the world in a way that they can relate with us because they don't want to be in the same painful situation that we were. And if we're in a power, if we're at the top controlling the world order, we can approach the world in a way that we can bring something to the table that the world have never seen before, because we have been completely at the bottom for centuries. So we that could make us better leaders at the top, right? This is our strength. This is our potential as black people. Let me see. Africa is ripe for land ownership. Don't forget about Prince halftime show. Again, another black guy. So that's what I'm saying. These are clearly showing you where two of our greatest strengths are converging. And what does it do? The end result is the entire world is watching, the entire world is listening, and the entire world is dancing happy. White people understand our strengths more than us. They know this. They put ourselves there in these routes for us to succeed. And for us, success is be able to buy as many cars as possible. But our ambition is not taking on a level of, can my country be at the world reserve, where we have all of these, where we master all of these 8 criterias, right? With that said, guys, thank you very much. I know it's been there for 3 hours, but I still have 7 of you in the chat with me. Thank you very much. I really encourage you guys to watch the entire videos. The link will be in the description below. And again, we look at the rise and fall of empires. Who is next, right? Who is going to be next? To me, it's clear based on those criteria that the US is on a falling trend. China is obviously on a rising trend. A clash is imminent. Are we seeing the current clash right now? Are we seeing this clash? Will we be seeing this clash in the next 10, 15 years? It's still too early to tell. We don't know, but I'm watching what's happening with Ukraine and Russia very closely, because this has the potential to escalate very quickly into a world war. We might already be in this world war. Some world war lasts 15 years, 10 years. That could be the beginning of it. I know astrology-wise, there would be no better way to start a World War III than February 24th. And we might be in there for a while, guys. So again, the signs are here for the passing of the guards, changing world orders. Make sure you check it out. And as investors, start asking yourself, what is the best place to invest for short-term and long-term growth? But what we're currently seeing right now is the biggest wealth transfer in our lifetime, but not just lifetime, in human history, because we haven't seen so many cycles converging at the same time. And that's what this cycle is going to be. This time is going to be remembered in history books, guys. By the time we reach 2025, 2035, we're going to go through many memorable things as a race. If we survive with this nuke wars coming in, we'll be thriving for a long time. But the one that will be leading that prosperity is the one that will be smart enough with their money, making their smart investment now, investing in innovation, and investing in technology, investing in education, and being smart with their money, and moving it in places where the next empire where you can leverage the trend of the empire that is rising, as opposed to leveraging the forces of the empire that is falling. So if you can understand that could lead you to a great style of investing for your entire generation. With that said, guys, thank you very much for your time, and we'll meet next Wednesday. I will make a part 2 of the stream that I made yesterday. Are we in a World War III? Part 2. More video reaction coming. We'll have fun, but it's all for the purpose of understanding the timing and making the smart investment. Should we buying the dip, or should we make smarter investments? In my exclusive Discord, Patreon, and also for my YouTube members, I also drop a video of things that I were doing to invest wisely in the time coming ahead. But if you want to know, make sure you tune in on my Patreon for that, or be a member. At least that video is posted as of yesterday. But with that said, guys, thank you very much for your time, and we'll meet on the next one.
Hey, yeah, it's all about wealth engineering. Might be something that you're not used to. It's okay, cause I'm here to introduce you to concepts. Time to grow and make big moves. All about crypto, come see. Stocks and business, yes indeed. Got the info that you need. Hosted by my homie JC. Hey, yeah, wealth engineering. Stacking and stacking it up. It's time to generate wealth till you living like Scrooge McDuck.